Hi, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Spurs Up Show. This is episode 26. We are coming to you live. It's homecoming week. The Gamecocks host the Vanderbilt Commodores this Saturday at 4 o'clock at Williams-Brice Stadium on the SEC Network. We'll get to all that and more, but first, if you do want to follow the show, be sure to check us out on iTunes at the Spurs Up Show. Be sure to go there, rate and subscribe. Tell us you like, tell us you don't like about the show. We appreciate all the feedback as always. Be sure to follow us on Twitter as well, at ArmchairSCar. That's at Armchair SCAR. Follow us on our Instagram account at ArmchairSCarolina. And also, this is a podcast brought to you by the Armchair Americans, armchairamericans.com. Localizing your sports coverage content. Be sure to go to armchairamericans.com. Check out the podcast as well as all of our South Carolina Gamecocks breaking news, the latest articles we have there as well. Like I said, I'm Chris Phillips, as always, joined as always by my colleague Tyler Clark. We're going to be previewing the Vandy matchup this weekend. Nothing to go over from the previous weekend because of the bye week. So I'll ask you, Tyler, starting out. How was your bye week? How'd you spend? Did you spend the weekend watching football, kind of decompressing? How was it for you?
It was good. I got a lot of things done. Definitely stayed busy. I didn't get to watch as much football this week as I wanted to. Went to the fair Saturday night, so I missed pretty much the only good games that were on all weekend. Definitely didn't get to see Notre Dame play, which that game really surprised me. I didn't think really Notre Dame was good at all until I saw the scores. Penn State, another game I wanted to watch, didn't get to see, but that one really went the way I thought it would. And then Sunday, definitely did nothing but watch football, and it was amazing. But it's a lot better getting back to a week that has a Carolina game.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was going to say, starting this show off a little bit differently. Nothing to recap like we just talked about off the air, with the bye week. But, yeah, there was some good football on. I didn't watch a ton either. It was kind of nice to kind of step away and just take a deep breath, you know what I mean, kind of relax. But, yeah, some really, really good games. It was fun to see Kentucky get their butts whipped. I was very ecstatic about that. I'm still obviously bitter about week 3 from this season. But, yeah, I mean, shockingly, Butch Jones is still employed right now, so that's news as well. But, yeah, big week coming up for sure. I mean, you got South Carolina Vanderbilt. You've got Florida, Georgia. You've got Texas A&M's back in action. I think they're playing Mississippi State. A lot of games around the SEC. We're going to focus on the one that we're obviously all concerned about. The South Carolina Gamecocks hosting the Vanderbilt Commodores, again, in a 4 o'clock kickoff on the SEC Network. It is homecoming for South Carolina. The Gamecocks return to SEC play at 5-2. They take on the Vanderbilt Commodores, who right now sit at 3-5. They're 0-4 in the SEC after a pretty promising start to the year. Commodores coached by Derek Mason. So, Tyler, before we get into breaking some things down, I'll just get kind of your initial thoughts about this game, kind of your feelings as far as that. We're technically one game past the halfway point, but, I kind of feel like fans and a lot of other people took this bye week as the halfway point. What are your feelings kind of coming into this game? Maybe not, it's kind of a weird situation because I feel like Vanderbilt's kind of having a strange year. They had a hot start. They've really struggled of late, got pummeled against Alabama. Florida took care of business. Georgia, they've kind of, had a string of really, really bad losses. Talk about your feelings coming into the game this weekend.
Yeah, it's definitely a different game than I thought it was going into the season. I thought Vanderbilt was going to be, much improved. I thought they'd have a really good defense, and I thought Ralph Webb, would just kind of run all over everybody. But, they have struggled immensely in SEC play. I think they beat Kansas State when Kansas State was ranked, which is a great win, and then you lose 4 straight in SEC play. So I definitely think it's a lot different than a lot of us thought it would be. But we'll take it this way, 100%, because I don't think they're very good.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially on the defensive side of the ball, I'm taking a look here. They've struggled mightily. I mean, they're averaging giving up 246.1 yards per game on the ground, 170 through the air, which you got to assume the reason is because teams have been able to run so well. Yeah. I think Bama ran for like 480 yards against them, which is obviously an anomaly. It was after the Vanderbilt defensive lineman said, we want Bama, and, they got them. Like I said, Bama won that game, I think 59-0. But, Georgia was able to run for a ton on them. Like you said, they mentioned they do have Ralph Webb back, who's having a decent year to this point. He's got 110 carries for 408 yards, just under 4 yards a carry, 5 touchdowns, so not terrible numbers for him. He does have actually 6 catches for 122 yards for a touchdown, so pretty good there. But they return Kyle Shermer, who has thrown for a little bit over 1,300 yards in the year. And actually, I didn't realize how good his passing stats were. He's thrown 14 touchdowns, only 2 picks. So he's taking care of the football. Vanderbilt, though, has had some issues, especially, like we said, against the better competition. I mean, they're, struggling mightily. They're averaging under 300 yards per game on offense, if that tells you anything as well. So, coming to this one, like I said, Tyler, it's interesting how much different, this time in the season is than last year was for South Carolina. The Gamecocks with a chance to go to 6-2, become bowl eligible, kind of knock that out in the 8th game, where I think last year they weren't able to achieve that feat till the 11th game. But I think some of the biggest news, Tyler, came today when the Gamecocks found out from Coach Muschamp's press conference they're going to be getting 3 of their top 5 O-linemen back. Malik Young, Zach Bailey, and Corey Helms will all be available Saturday. They're not sure who's going to start. I'm not sure that really matters, but all 3 will be back. All 3 will be healthy. I think it's going to be an absolute huge boost for this offensive line and this offense in general.
Yeah, 100%. We talked about it, I guess it was last week's show after the Tennessee game. The interim offensive line basically is what it pretty much ended up being. They got better each game, and they played really well. So it'll definitely be interesting to see how they play it. But mostly having Zach Bailey back, he's one of the best offensive linemen in the SEC, maybe in the country. But yeah, it's huge having them back because they work as kind of like a catcher, kind of in baseball, how they just run the rest of the offensive line. Just having Zach Bailey, it brings like a calmness to the offensive line, I feel like. So having them back, definitely in a leadership role, and just having them back physically is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, definitely with depth as well, like you were saying. And, I agree with you. Zach Bailey, it's kind of the anchor on that offensive line, if you will. I think all the guys kind of look to him, and, he's definitely, I think it'd be safe to say, the best player on the O-line and one of the veterans for sure. And just from a body standpoint, I mean, having those 3 guys back and able to play is going to be huge for depth. One thing I'm definitely looking forward to doing this game and to see, and would like to see South Carolina take advantage of. I think they're going to come in this game trying to run the football. Vanderbilt obviously has struggled immensely against the run. And I think they're going to almost sort of carry the game plan from Tennessee over to Vanderbilt. But it's going to be interesting to see what Jake Bentley does for kind of the second half of the season. I mean, he talked about some of the things he had struggled with as far as with his feet. It was interesting. I'm not sure if you saw the article today, Tyler. There was an article in the state newspaper about Jake Bentley and some of the things they'd worked on in the offseason about getting him more moving around in the pocket, I guess, if you will.
Yeah. I heard this on the radio this morning. It was crazy.
Yeah, moving his feet. And he just said that he thought maybe that he kind of took it too much to heart, if you will, and would kind of incorporated that too much into his game, his game, I guess. And that was the reason for him throwing the ball, off balance or not getting his feet set. And, that was one thing he worked on. So it'll be interesting to see how he kind of incorporates that. I mean, I don't know if it'll make a difference if he's, like I said, recognized what he was doing wrong. But I mean, without a doubt, I think we can both agree there have been plenty of times this season where I think the reason he's missed the throw high or just missed the throw in general was feet not being set, just not good form. I mean, really, it's kind of been his Achilles heel, if you will. So I'm interested to see kind of the adjustments he makes. Can this offense improve in the second half of the season? I mean, they're going to have to. You've got Vanderbilt this week, but then you go to Georgia. You got Florida. That's slated in November with Georgia, Florida, and Clemson. You're going to have to play better than you have on offense to this point in the season. I think you're going to have to improve, at least find some type of an identity. And also with Rico Dowdle out, I mean, you got to rely on Tyson Williams, Mon Denson. So that'll be really interesting as well. So, Tyler, really, I think the question, it's funny. South Carolina's had a lot of success against Vanderbilt. They're 22-4, I think. They've won 8 in a row, which I saw it today, and it's like, man, like with all the close games, it doesn't feel like it's been 8 in a row. But they've won 8 in a row, haven't lost to them since I think it was the 2009 game, maybe?
I thought it was 2000, whatever year we were number 4 in the country. I thought it was 2007.
Right. Yeah, it might have been. Either way, though, there's been some really crazy games. I just remember thinking back to 2014 when South Carolina was on the road and they were down 14 points in the fourth quarter, came back and won that game. And, Vanderbilt's been a stingy team at this point, for South Carolina throughout the years. I mean, there's definitely been some blowouts here and there, but, Vandy's been a team that South Carolina hasn't really been able to take lightly. And, Tyler, on homecoming Saturday, South Carolina's had a chance to kind of regroup, relax, sort of get healthy. I'm just really interested to see kind of, are they going to come out fired up and make a statement on Saturday, or are we going to see a team that, comes out, plays the level of its competition, and plays flat? So, I'm not really sure what to make of this Vanderbilt club, if you will.
Yeah, I don't either. But going off what you said, coming off of, I don't feel like the bye week really helped them after that Tennessee game, because I feel like if you had a home game right after winning at Tennessee the way you did, I feel like you'd be a lot more fired up. But I also feel like if you worked on some things and you're confident in the things you worked on in the bye week, that you could still show up, and be fired up to play. And it's not a noon game, which really works in South Carolina's favor, because waking up for a noon game, after a bye week, I could only imagine how dragging the game would be. Yeah, it would be awful.
Not fun.
Very blessed to have a 4 p.m. start. But yeah, I'm really interested to see how they come out. I'm also really interested to see how the running game works, because Jake Bentley said in his interview today that Mon Denson has looked really good, in the few reps that he's gotten that he has to take over for. So it'll be really interesting. I think A.J. Turner is going to play a lot more of a role out of the backfield than we've seen.
Yeah, I think the carries that Denson's got, he has looked pretty good. I mean, he's kind of a smaller dude, but just runs behind his pads, and like Steve Spurrier used to say, runs behind his pads, gets low. But yeah, I mean, he's looked pretty good in his limited carries, but. I agree with you. I just think the biggest thing for South Carolina that happened in the bye weeks, they got healthy. I mean, I just think I'm very interested to see getting those 3 guys back on offensive line, how big of an impact it's going to be. And also, resting those guys on defense. I mean, I don't think we'd heard a ton about anybody being banged up. I mean, obviously, besides like Bryson Allen Williams and some of those guys. But, how good is that defense going to look? How refreshed is that defense going to be after a week off, kind of getting to relax? As good as they've been playing, you can only hope they continue that to keep that up. One of the big things I'm looking for, like I said, is just coming out. You kind of had 2 weeks too. I don't think anybody's telling South Carolina how great they are, but it just feels like a kind of game where, maybe Vanderbilt doesn't really know. Vanderbilt doesn't know they're supposed to lose to South Carolina Saturday. And the longer you let a team like Vanderbilt hang around and feel like give them a chance, the harder it's going to become. And the last thing you want is to go into the fourth quarter with Vanderbilt. It's a 1-score game, a field goal or a touchdown game. And, now you've got a barn burner on your hands. So I'm just interested to see how the kind of intensity South Carolina comes out with. I think it'll be a really, really good crowd Saturday. I mean, homecoming, like you said, 4 o'clock kickoff. I think South Carolina fans are really enjoying these 4 o'clock kickoffs, rightfully so too. Should be beautiful weather on Saturday as well. So, I'm really interested to see how they come out for sure. Moving into some key matchups, Tyler, one that I want to start with that I kind of take from last year. I'm not sure if you remember the quote, but I got USC linebacker TJ Brunson. I feel like I say his name every single week, but TJ Brunson against Vanderbilt running back Ralph Webb. I'm not sure if you remember last year from SEC Media Days where Ralph Webb basically guaranteed a win against South Carolina at SEC Media Days in the game last year when they opened up in Nashville, obviously off the leg of Elliott Fry. The Gamecocks were able to win that game and really shut down Ralph Webb. But like you mentioned earlier, he's one of the best, probably most underrated backs in the conference. He's a really good player, really quick, and catch the ball out of the backfield like we mentioned earlier. So it's just going to be up to TJ Brunson. I think they said he's ranked 5th or 6th in tackles right now in the SEC with the bye week. So, I mean, right on pace. He's having an absolutely fantastic year, and it's going to be interesting to see can he keep that up, keep that impressive play up, moving into the second half of the year.
Yeah, Ralph Webb's been a name I feel like we've had, around the SEC for a long time, and around the South Carolina game, it seems like we say his name so much, but he never really does anything. And I'm knocking on wood here because I don't want him to do anything like that Saturday, but I feel like he doesn't ever play well against South Carolina. But hopefully that trend continues. I really like your matchups you have here. The only other one I would have is Dante Sawyer against Kyle Shermer, because Kyle Shermer's, I will give him this, he's not the worst quarterback, in the SEC. He's a very capable quarterback, if his offensive line really gives him time. He's a good athlete. But if Dante Sawyer is able, to get up in his grill like he did the Tennessee quarterback's name, I can't remember his name right now.
Garantano.
Garantano. Yeah. Garantano was just so uncomfortable the entire game because Dante Sawyer was in the backfield every single play. I don't know if you saw the stuff I retweeted, but somebody tweeted a list of almost every position, at the top grades in the SEC, and Gamecocks were on like 5 of them, and Dante Sawyer was one of the top defensive ends. So I'm really interested to see if Dante Sawyer can carry his momentum because he's been playing absolutely fantastic coming off the edge.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's had the kind of year that Will Muschamp, we heard all through preseason, like, hey, these 3 guys on the defensive line, Sawyer, Uric Jones, and Taylor Stallworth, all have to have. I think he's had the kind of year that Will Muschamp was looking for out of a senior defensive end. The other matchup I had, I think this matchup will bounce around between Fenton and Jamarcus King, and I think Vanderbilt's going to try to get Trent Sherfield, the wide receiver, out in space against Jamarcus King. Sherfield, 23 catches for just under 400 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's, basically been Kyle Shermer's favorite target. I mean, you got Kalijah Lipscomb, who had 6 catches for 269 yards and 5 touchdowns. So, I just think Jamarcus King, obviously, I think he's been improving. He had a really rough start where wasn't really getting his head turned around, was kind of getting burnt there. But I think he's played a lot better here moving on. He's going to need to have another big game. Obviously, the matchup you just talked about, is going to play a factor into that. Can the defensive line get into Shermer's face? And I think that this matchup sets up really favorably for them in that regard because, with Garantano, I mean, they had 7 sacks against him, but Garantano even was obviously a mobile quarterback. I mean, he was able to get away from some pass rushes. They won't have to worry about that about Kyle Shermer. I mean, he's going to be a guy that's going to drop back, sit in the pocket. And if South Carolina can get Vanderbilt in some longer passing downs, they're going to be able to pin their ears back. Guys like DJ Wanham, Dante Sawyer, maybe even Brad Johnson, Aaron Sterling, Stallworth, all the guys up front. So it'll be very interesting to see. And then the third matchup, Tyler, you looked at it. I've got USC versus Looking Ahead. We all heard the announcement this week. And I mean, I was even talking about with a buddy of mine on the phone a little while ago. South Carolina's game against Georgia. The time was announced. It's a 3:30 kickoff on CBS between the hedges. Game could have huge implications if South Carolina moves to 6-2. If Georgia were to somehow lose to the Florida Gators this weekend, somehow the game would be for the SEC East lead. There's a lot of implications going on. It's just a big game. It's a rivalry game, Tyler. You and I know. I mean, it's a game we're looking forward to without a doubt. And as fans can look ahead to games. It doesn't matter. But for South Carolina's team, they need to come out. It's really going to be them against themselves to be focused on the task at hand, to not take Vandy lightly despite the record, the 0-4 conference record, and to take care of business on Saturday afternoon. Because, like I said before, the last thing you want to do is give a team like Vanderbilt any type of hope in the second half of this football game, and you get to the fourth quarter and you look up and, like you said, you're in a tie game or a 3-point game or just a situation you don't want to be in. So I just think and especially with a young team like South Carolina has, young teams sometimes have the tendency to do stuff like that, to look ahead, to games the following week and stuff like that. So just take a look at what Clemson did against Syracuse. I think that'll be really, really interesting to see how South Carolina kind of comes out and just plays against themselves, really. Couple keys to the game, Tyler. I think it's one we sort of harp on all the time, but really taking the theme from the Tennessee game into this week, control the line of scrimmage. I mean, the way that South Carolina was able to run the football in the second half of that game, like we mentioned, you've got your big studs back on the offensive line. I think this is a game, again, though, I'll tell you this. Last week against Tennessee, it was another game where I was like, the first quarter, I think, went by, and Tyson Williams hadn't touched the football yet. I'm really hoping to see that trend change this week. I
think we ran about 6 plays that first quarter, though.
That's a good
Kurt
point.
Roper's defense, Tennessee had the ball for 11 minutes of that first quarter.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
But, 100%. Yeah, there's no way that Tyson Williams doesn't get a carry in the first quarter. It's really interesting. I keep forgetting Rico Dowdle's out for the season, which is terrible. But
it's not even terrible, though, because he hasn't done that much this year.
Yeah, but you still have to have the threat of him. I mean, he ran for almost 800 yards or so last year in 6 games. So the threat is still there, but now I feel like Tyson Williams is going to be able to have a full game.
Well, I think Tyson's going to have to – I mean, I'd love to see Tyson be a guy who gets like 15 carries, 20 carries, even if it's there. Yeah. And I think that they've got to continue to use A.J. Turner in the sweep game. Continue to use him in the
really
ball
good in
game.
open field.
He is. He's very good in open field. So they got to find creative ways to get both those guys the football. And then Mon Denson, I like him as like that change of pace back, maybe a 2nd and 1, maybe even 3rd and 1 back. But yeah, they've got to find a way to get creative with those guys. Continue the theme from the Tennessee game. Control the line of scrimmage, and don't let Ralph Webb beat you on the other side. Control it. If Ralph Webb gets going, it could be a long afternoon for South Carolina. And me and you, Tyler, we've both seen way too many times where the Gamecocks make opposing running backs look like Heisman Trophy winners.
Not John Kelly.
Not John Kelly. Well, at least just one play, but Jamarcus King will forgive. Jamias Williams will forgive you. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Got my jams mixed up there.
Yep.
But yeah, second key to the game, just like I said earlier, play within yourself. Don't look ahead. Focus on the task at hand. It's homecoming. Obviously it's going to be a packed house. Just stay within yourself. The last time we saw South Carolina in front of a packed house, I don't want to bring it up, but Kentucky game, they kind of just pissed down their leg, if you will, laid an egg. Just play within yourself. Come out, play a solid football game. It's a team you should beat for sure. South Carolina is a touchdown favorite on Saturday. Stick to the game plan and, get a W. And then the last key I'll go with is just attack on defense. I mean, just kind of continue what you've been doing. But the way South Carolina's been playing on defense and how bad Vanderbilt's looked on offense, I think this is kind of another game where the defense can really take over. I mean, like you said before, with Sawyer and the other guys in the front seven, the way the secondary is locked down, Rashad Fenton leading that group. I think this is the kind of game where, even if South Carolina's offense is struggling early, I think their defense can not only keep them in the game, but maybe even turn a turnover into a score. So continue to attack, continue to be aggressive, force Kyle Shermer to make decisions he doesn't want to make, put him in pressure situations. You had 7 sacks against Tennessee. I don't expect that type of effort, but, they need to get after Kyle Shermer, a guy that really looks like he's moving in quicksand back there. So, yeah, were there any other keys to the game, Tyler, I might have missed out on that you had? Or
Not really. I mean, you just got to be able to run the ball. I feel like that's going to be the key to the game, and I think South Carolina will be able to run the ball almost at will the way they did against Tennessee.
I agree with you. I think it's just I'm very intrigued to see how the offensive line plays with those 3 guys back. I'm just very, very intrigued to see how they play because you would think it'd be a lot better. I mean, if they're able to run the ball against Tennessee and then you add in those 3 pieces, you should be able to have some success. We'll jump right into it, Tyler, with some predictions. I'll let you start with the honors.
All right, so the games I've been fairly confident in this year, I haven't done so well in, but I don't see any scenario where South Carolina just gets outplayed. I really don't think that's going to happen. So if I have to pick a prediction, I'll pick South Carolina 34, Vanderbilt 17, and I believe one of South Carolina's scores will be on defense.
I like it. Yeah, we're actually making field goals now. I forgot.
Parker White is back.
Parker White,
baby.
3 for 3 in Tennessee. Yeah, we didn't even.
He's back at 50% for the year.
He's back in a big way. Yeah, exactly. I like that.
500.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, homecoming Saturday against South Carolina has a chance to get to 6-2, which is
that's outrageous.
I mean, yeah, you sit there and think about it, and obviously, like we had talked about before, the 2 losses you've had, there's been a lot of gripes and groans, and especially the way this season's gone, the way they've gotten there. But the fact of the matter is South Carolina gets a win Saturday. They're going back bowling, and they've got 4 more games left to improve on that bowl game. So it's a huge game. It's a huge game to build momentum, get your 3rd straight win, get another conference win before you head into Athens the next week. I agree with you. I just don't see a scenario in which South Carolina comes out just porously flat and just, even make – I don't want to say don't even make this close. I'm not saying it's going to be like a 50-point blowout, but I just don't see – I don't think this game will ever be in a situation where you feel like it's not in hand. I think South Carolina will control this football game. I just don't think Vanderbilt, as young as South Carolina's even, I don't think they have the athletes to keep up with South Carolina. I'm looking at a score probably 31-14. Something really similar to what you said. But I just think it's a game where South Carolina, even at that point, I think South Carolina's able to get some younger guys in the 4th quarter. It might be a situation where it's like 31-7 and Vanderbilt gets kind of a cheap one late. I just think the Gamecocks will control this one from start to finish. And I agree with you. I wouldn't be surprised to see a defensive touchdown or maybe even special teams touchdown in this game. We haven't seen one of those in a while since Debo. So it'll
Remember that year Vanderbilt scored or ran 2 kickoffs back for a touchdown? Was that 2014?
That was the 14 game when South Carolina came back by 14 points. Yeah, no, that was an ugly game. There's been that's what I'm saying. There's been a lot of ugly games. I mean, even those, like you said, even those teams that won 11 games.
Yeah, they never really beat.
I mean,
let me look this up real fast. I'm curious.
Because I remember 2011, I think it was, they went to Vandy, and that was the game that Justice Cunningham had to catch where his helmet flew off and he shook his dreads. They won that game like 17-10 or something. And I think Connor Shaw got hurt in that game. That was 2012, I think. That was 2012, I believe.
All right, I'm looking this up. I'm curious of these scores. Oh, how do you find this?
2012 was South Carolina won 17-13. And the Gamecocks were ranked 8th in the country. 2011, we won
21-3. 2010, 21-7. 2013, 35-25. 48-34 was 2014.
And I was at that game in 2013. That was an interesting game. I think South Carolina got up like 28-0 in that one. And then let Vanderbilt come all the way back. It was at 35-28, and they made a stand at the goal line to keep them out.
Hey, so 2015, Sean Elliott coached Gamecocks, won 19-10.
Yeah, dude, that's so funny. That's one of those games where I was there, but it's like it didn't happen. Like that season just didn't happen. Yeah, that was the game where Sky Moore and Bryson Williams and Dante Sawyer all ran to midfield after they recovered a fumble and did the dab. I remember that.
2008 was the last loss. It was 24-17 at Vanderbilt.
And they lost in 2007 too.
Yep, that 17-6 was the game. South Carolina was number 4 in the country after beating Kentucky.
Gamecocks had a 2-game losing streak to Vanderbilt. But hey, you know what? We have a 4-game losing streak to Kentucky, and I would have never believed it if you told me that would happen. So
that's true.
There you go. But yeah, I guess some more Gamecock tidbits, Tyler. We're really getting very close to basketball. I know we had the media days. I want to talk to you about. I want to get your opinion real quick on the selection where the media had the Gamecocks finishing in the SEC this season, because I think there was some disrespect tossed the Gamecocks' way. I don't have it pulled up here.
I believe it was 11.
Do you have it?
I believe that they picked South Carolina at 11th.
11th.
I thought it was 13 on the last podcast, but apparently it's 11. They may have been like a coaches poll and a media poll.
Right.
I think the coaches poll may have had them at 13, and the media poll had them at 11.
Right. So I think that I think a basketball sort of preview show would be a very good show to have. But I want to just get your take. What's your feelings on South Carolina picked in the 11th spot after losing Sindarius, Thornwell, PJ Dozier, Dwayne Notice, a bunch of guys from that team? Do you feel like there's some disrespect being thrown that way? Do you feel like it's the right spot? What's your take on it?
I feel like it's hard to pick a Final Four team to be past 10th. And then you look at all the question marks that are around South Carolina right now. There's just so many guys that are question marks that you don't really know how the season's going to go. I feel like as far as Chris Silva and Mike Kotsar, you have a pretty good, big guys. But then you get down to point guard, and you have Hassani Gravett, who's a returner, and that's about it. The loss of Rakim Felder is huge. I think that alone puts you back a few spots in that poll, because I feel like he was going to have a huge year and a huge role. But now you're relying on transfers and grad transfers and freshmen pretty much to fill that void. So it's almost like I understand it, but I don't know. It's tough to pick that. I would have them if I had a vote, it would be probably 8 or 9 if I had to pick.
Right. Yeah, I kind of feel the same way as you. I mean, there's a ton of question marks, but I think the only reason that South Carolina's not getting the respect they're looking for is that they haven't done it back-to-back years yet. I mean, I think it's at the point where if they come out this year and guys like Corey Holden and some of those new guys really show out, and I think people will start to give Frank Martin the benefit of the doubt.
And And he doesn't seem so negative about the team.
No, he doesn't. I don't think he does
easily
either.
the best shooting team he's ever coached, which is pretty crazy.
Pretty bold.
Yeah, it's very bold when you have guys like Michael Beasley who could shoot. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm interested to see. And I think we have an exhibition versus Virginia Tech.
For the hurricane relief as well.
Yeah, it's really cool. I don't remember who they had last year in that exhibition because I think they're supposed to be like secrets and they never happened. But I think they played a team pretty much like Virginia Tech last year, and we didn't get to see any of it. So it's really cool that they opened that up, for hurricane relief.
Yeah, they actually, I believe that game is on. Let me see. I think that one's coming up like next couple of days, I believe. No, you're right. November the 5th at 2 p.m. at Colonial Life Arena. So
yeah, I'll have to make that.
That'll be obviously a whole lot of fun. Cool exhibition for sure. The Gamecocks' first game though will be a week from yesterday, the 30th. The Gamecocks take on Erskine, and obviously, what is an exhibition? And then they do the hoops for hurricane relief exhibition, which is they'll take on Virginia Tech November the 5th, at Wofford November the 10th. And then the Gamecocks travel to Puerto Rico. They're doing this in
Myrtle Beach.
Myrtle Beach, that's right. Excuse me. So they're doing the Puerto Rico tip-off. The first game is actually in Columbia against Western Michigan. And then they play Illinois State, Boise State, or UTEP, and then to be determined because it's a tournament in Conway, South Carolina, and then Florida International as well. They play in a lot of tournaments in the preseason, don't they? And the Under Armour tournament. Yeah, the Under Armour reunion is another game they play in November the 30th against Temple, which would be a great game. But South Carolina, their first, I guess, the official home game that counts will be the Western Michigan game.
I'm interested to see what kind of crowds are in Colonial Life Arena because the only crowds that blew me away last year were Florida and Clemson, which were amazing games. I'm interested to see if they pick up, like some season ticket holders, and people are just curious to come out because I feel like, the fans really miss out on basketball games. They're a ton of fun, especially when you have the away team shooting free throws, and if they miss both, you get Chick-fil-A, and the student stadium goes absolutely freaking crazy. It's awesome. That's what I'm interested to see.
I mean, South Carolina's women's basketball team literally sells out every game. So I think with a little bit of success, I agree with you. It'll be interesting to see the crowds, but I would love to make those. I wish I could during the week. I'll have to come to some of those on the weekend, especially when we get into conference play. But yeah, that being said, we've actually got questions for this week for the Spurs Up Show. We'll get right into them. This one comes from our good buddy from Reddit, Muffuggin, with one of the best usernames on Reddit. Only questions I have about the game this week are injury report. Last week, several people said that Deebo Samuel may return for the end of the season. A lot of chatter this week's pointed to a tweet he pointed out on the day of the injury saying a 6-week recovery with no setbacks. The 6-week timeline puts him back in return for UGA. Is there any word or not whether he'll meet the timeline, or are we looking at Florida or later for his return? We'll kind of get to that first because he kind of goes into the offensive line next. Tyler, from what I've heard, I mean, I think it's just not realistic to think he's going to return before the bowl game. And even at that point, if that's all he has left, I almost just don't see the point.
Yeah, I don't see any point of him playing this year. I don't think that there's a way that he could return. And it's not worth it at that point.
Right. It's just what's the point in pushing it? I mean, he's, because I just don't see any way he comes back next year either. I mean, I think you go through that many injuries, he's probably going to try to get to the league as fast as he possibly can. I mean, I don't know what his options are going to be. On one hand, selfishly, I'd love to see him come back to South Carolina.
The red shirt's on the table because I feel like Bryson Allen Williams got one the same game, but I just don't know if he wants a red shirt.
I don't. That's what I'm saying. I mean, selfishly, I'd like to see him come back, but on the other side, the last thing I want to see happen is him come back and work the entire offseason again and get hurt again. Because at that point, it's like, hey, your career really is over now. Like, I mean, you can't.
Yeah, that's like Lattimore territory.
Right, exactly.
But I feel like that's a freak accident. Breaking your leg, that's not something that characteristically is going to happen.
Right. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see. But I just don't see. I mean, they here's the thing. Will Muschamp is definitely not giving any information that makes me optimistic that he'll come back at all before the bowl game. Yeah. And the only thing I've heard him say is the bowl game. So we'll see. Second part of the question, I keep hearing on the Cola Sports Talk shows that even though the offensive line is getting healthier, We may leave the most experienced guys out, so young guys are performing well, and worries about chemistry in the offensive line on that. What's your opinion on the impact such chemistry has on a college football offensive line? Tyler, I'll let you kind of address that one.
I really have no idea, to be honest. I've never played offensive line. But I feel like they've played so many games. I believe going into this year, the starting offensive line had like 98 starts on it.
Right.
So I feel like, they all kind of groove together. And we've seen the last couple of weeks that they've gotten better each week. I don't think there's going to be any chemistry problems. I feel like I feel like it would get better, if anything. Just seeing what – because I feel like if you're watching on the sideline for a couple of weeks when you're hurt, you notice a lot more things than you wouldn't see if you were in the game. So, if anything, I feel like it's going to help.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I mean, I don't think it's going to really hurt as far as chemistry goes. I mean, I think it's sort of like – I think they're going to go with the group that's hot. I mean, I think if one group's in there and blocking well and they put those starters in there and maybe they're rusty, if you will, from not playing, I mean, they're not just going to put them in there because they're the starters. You know what I mean? They're going to leave the guys in that have been blocking well. So, I mean, I don't think I don't think that's – something to look into about, the guys aren't starting. Listen, they're all going to play. They're all going to play a lot. I mean, people don't realize when they watch a game, and myself included. I mean, because like you said, Tyler, if you don't play offensive line is one of the toughest positions, in my opinion, to analyze because you just don't really know that much about it, and it's not a position that's talked about consistently. So you don't realize how many guys just get shuffled in and out, how many times they're running in and out offensive linemen. So I don't think it's a big deal. I think it's just a big deal to have those guys as an option, if nothing else. Yeah. Southgate Taylor asks, I'm curious about the Wounded Warrior games we used to do. Do we still do that? I'm active duty, and I thought it was an awesome cause to be a part of. And the jerseys looked awesome. First, Southgate Taylor, we appreciate your service, everything you've done. So appreciate that and the question. Yeah, you remember those jerseys, Tyler?
I don't know if I like them, but I like the apparel that went with it. I feel like the T-shirts are amazing, but I feel like the jerseys that we wore against LSU, what was that, 2012?
Was that 12? That was 12.
Something like
right
that.
After Georgia. It was right after Georgia.
Right. I feel like the jerseys weren't the coolest, but the apparel was cool. Like the T-shirts that you would get were awesome. I don't know anything about those. I feel like are the games like the Florida weird uniforms? Did they have anything to do with the Wounded Warrior?
No, some guy commented in here, I believe, and said that apparently the Wounded Warrior Foundation actually misappropriated funds a few years ago, so we don't really work with them anymore.
Oh,
well, there you go. But
about money.
yeah, of course. But I just remember when they wore the Wounded Warrior jerseys against Auburn. Remember when they wore them against Auburn, a terrible game, 2011, and they had to switch jerseys because they couldn't wear the jerseys because the numbers had the camo in them, and they couldn't tell who was which number, which is the most bananas thing I've ever heard in my life. But
I remember we wore them against Florida in the Tebow era, and those were
was 2008, I believe. Those were really cool.
Yeah, those were awesome. I wish we do that.
That was the
camo, the Digi-Camo always with everything.
That was the Steven Garcia Wesley Saunders game.
Oh, there we go. Now I remember.
Yeah, that game was close for a little bit, and then Tim Tebow
happened.
Took over. Yeah, it was so brutal to watch. But
probably my biggest sports villain ever.
Tim Tebow.
Tim Tebow.
I'm not. Yeah,
and he never goes away. It's like we're constantly reminded of that.
I think like once they leave college, I don't really care anymore. Like for example, I hated Cam Newton in college. I hated him, but
I did too.
Now that I'm not a diehard NFL fan by any means, but I do live in Charlotte, and he's obviously the quarterback for the Carolina Panthers. I don't mind him. Now, let me put it this way. Now the stuff that he does is just funny. In college, the stuff that he did, I hated him. So there you go. But yeah, I'm looking at those jerseys now they wore against LSU. Those were pretty cool. The white helmets kind of threw me off.
Are those the gray ones?
Those are the gray ones.
Are those the gray ones?
They had the gray tops with the Digi-Camo pants.
Look at these.
They weren't all gray. Yeah, because the pants were 2012. 2012. The pants were not all gray, which made it kind of weird. That was the game Jimmy LeGree had a big interception in that game. Remember that?
Okay,
Almost ran
yes.
it back for the
These jerseys,
touchdown.
oh my God, those are filthy. The pants are even sicker.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people still wear the gray jerseys around Columbia to games and stuff.
Yeah, the
You'll see
helmet's
people.
got to go. Though. The helmet's got to go.
Yeah, you can't wear a white helmet with gray.
Do you imagine the matte black helmet we have now on that uni?
Yeah, see, that would look really good.
Oh my God! All right, I gotta get away from this. Those Digicam pants are sick.
Yeah, they look awesome. But yeah, with that being said, I mean, I think not much else to go over. South Carolina's wrapping up their Garnet and Black World Series for baseball, so baseball season will be here before you know it. South Carolina's kickoff against Georgia announced for 3:30. I'm not sure yet, Tyler, if I will be in Athens for that one. It'll be interesting. I'm not really sure yet. I'd like to be, but we'll kind of see what happens. But I think other than that, that's pretty much it. You got anything else? Any last words? Anything maybe I missed on in this week's edition?
Do you feel like Florida has like a fighting chance whatsoever against Georgia?
They're a 14-point underdog. I'll tell you this: I wouldn't bet on Georgia 14. I wouldn't bet on it at all, really. If I had to, gun to head, though, I'd take Florida plus 14 just because I feel like it's a rivalry game. It's a huge rivalry game. I mean, Georgia is by far the better team. Florida is just, what are they, 3-3, struggling. But isn't this the point in the season where Georgia just Georgia's? I mean, I just have this weird feeling something weird's going to happen Saturday. I could be completely wrong. But I don't know.
I'd love to see it, but I feel like I'm on the opposite end here. I feel like I would 100% take the 14. But then I remember that Florida always gets into these freaking 14-10 games, and it's so weird. And
I'll give them this. Florida does have I don't know if you saw what the Florida receivers said yesterday, but they're not rolling this game not confident. They literally had one of the receivers said that I'm paraphrasing, but he said basically, we don't care that Georgia's number 2 in the country. They can't beat Florida. They haven't beat us in 3 years. I mean, Florida's owned Georgia of late. So
Tennessee said the same thing 2 weeks ago.
I know. I get it. I'll tell you this, though. To compare Tennessee to Florida is Tennessee's bad.
And they almost beat them. They won on a Hail Mary.
Yeah. So, trust me, it wouldn't shock me at all. I mean, Georgia's by far the better team. It wouldn't shock me at all if Georgia just ran all over them. Let me ask you this as a South Carolina fan. Let's just say for good cause, let's just assume South Carolina is going to win Saturday. What do you think is the best case scenario for South Carolina? That Georgia wins big? Like, what do you think the best case in that game? Georgia wins big? Do you think it's better Florida wins? What do you think the best case scenario for South Carolina would be?
I don't know. I feel like Florida would have to beat them because I feel like if they're undefeated going into a home game at South Carolina or against South Carolina, I feel like they just keep rolling. I don't feel that way about any other team, but I feel like Georgia specifically, they would have to lose again. And I don't think they're going to. I think they're going to finish the regular season undefeated.
I'll tell you this, though. Let me raise this to you. I think and I agree with you. I don't disagree with that. I think Georgia's maybe the second best team in the country.
I think they are 100%.
Right. I think that the only way that the wheels fall off this thing for Georgia, or I don't want to say the wheels fall off because I think they're at a point where they're going to go to the SEC championship game almost no matter what. But I think the only way this season doesn't go to Georgia the way they're looking for it is if they start to mess with this whole Jake Fromm, Jacob Eason thing.
I don't think they're going to mess with it, though. I feel like Jacob Eason's the better quarterback, but I feel like that ship's sailing. I think he's going to be gone.
Yeah, I've just seen a lot of talk in Dogland of, should we get Eason in the game because he can throw, and you're going to have to throw to beat Alabama. And I mean, obviously the fans don't make the decisions, but it's an interesting dynamic. It's really interesting.
It is. I haven't thought about it that way because if they start splitting reps, because I seriously doubt they're 50-50 right now in practice. There's no way.
No,
if they start splitting reps, then you get some internal battles going, and
that's what I'm saying.
You start to lose focus.
Right. I can't imagine. Kirby Smart would be probably the worst coach in the country if he did that. So I can't assume he'll do that. But no, I mean, I don't know. It's such a toss-up game. It's such a huge rivalry. But yeah, I can't see a situation where Florida wins.
It'd be hilarious. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. No. Trust me.
It'd be so Florida to win out and every other team collapses and then they go play Alabama again.
Sneak their way into the SEC championship again and then lose by 50 to Alabama. Yeah, sounds good.
Georgia-Alabama is the game I want to see. I feel like that's the national championship.
Yeah, no, that's the kind of game where if they're both undefeated, Bama wins by 3 or Georgia wins by 3, they still both might get in.
Unless Clemson turns it around and Kelly Bryant's fine, I don't feel like any other team can compete with either Alabama or Georgia. I feel like Penn State's going to lose at some point and find themselves out of the playoff.
Right.
I don't want to see that happen because I'd like to see Penn State in the playoff because I feel like their fans constantly think that they can compete with the big dogs, and if you don't let them, then – that was like Michigan State a couple years ago when they got to play Alabama. I'd like to see them play in a game like that.
Or Washington when they played Alabama and got waxed. I mean –
yeah.
Wanting Alabama is not really a smart thing to do.
Sometimes
at all. Penn State, I don't know if you saw last weekend, Penn State was chanting, "We want Bama," and I think one of their defensive backs that's in the NFL tweeted and said, "I don't know." He's like, "You want us, you'll get us," or something.
They play
like
Ohio
that.
State this week, right?
Yeah, in the shoe,
Oh,
and they're a 6-point underdog.
That's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, it's a great game.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good games on this weekend for sure, but the next weekend, I'm definitely looking forward to because you got South Carolina, Georgia at 3:30, LSU at Bama at 8. So that's a fun little back-to-backer right there.
We asked who's Vanderbilt. Who is LSU? That is the weirdest team I've ever seen in my life.
That's true. Yeah, lose to Troy and then beat Auburn and when you're down 20-0 and then destroy Ole Miss. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy.
So much to be excited about.
A sneaky good game this weekend is Texas A&M Mississippi State though, in Aggie land. That should be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
A&M's a weird team, man. They're a weird team too. A lot of weird teams in the SEC this year, I think. And then you got Tennessee, Kentucky in the nightcap, 7:30. Butch Jones fighting for his job.
I think Tennessee wins.
Who do you think? I'll ask you because I kind of tend to agree with you. Who do you think it's a bigger game for? Mark Stoops in Kentucky or Butch Jones in Tennessee?
Oh, Butch Jones 100%. Even though he's going to get
fired. Here's the
100%.
kicker. I think Butch Jones is fired anyways.
I do too, but I feel like you have to win.
Yeah, I see an argument for both sides though because I just feel like Kentucky, like they feel like they're building. They beat South Carolina again. Whatever.
Where's the game at?
It's in Kentucky.
Okay, you're right. Yeah, Mark Stoops 100%.
Because I'm just saying the thing is like Tennessee, they know they suck. Like they suck. Tennessee can get back to Tennessee though. They have tradition. They can recruit.
But of all the teams that suck in the SEC, they're not the worst suck team.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with you. I think Garantano's a good quarterback. I think he's going to be really good. I mean, obviously it's Bama. I mean,
the speed of the game's way too fast for him right now, and
right. But you can see the raw potential there. Right. I feel like,
yeah.
So I don't know. It'll be
Tennessee in that game though.
Oh, I am too because I want South Carolina to finish second in the East at least, and Kentucky I think might be ahead of South Carolina. Probably is ahead of South Carolina right now. So, hey, whatever we'll do. I mean. You give me second place in the SEC East and Will Muschamp's second year, I think there are no Gamecock fans that would be upset at that by any stretch of the imagination. So, but, like we said, we'll play with the scenarios next week. I think that's pretty much going to wrap it up. Like I said, check in with us next week. We'll actually be recapping the Vanderbilt game. We'll be previewing the game against the Dogs between the hedges, like we said. But be sure to get to Columbia if you can. Check out Homecoming. Check out Game Days. The Gamecocks host the Vanderbilt Commodores at 4 o'clock at Williams-Brice Stadium. As always, again, he's Tyler Clark. I'm Chris Phillips. This has been another episode of the Spurs Up Show. We appreciate you guys listening. We'll catch you next time.